It started on the first day of Kwanzaa. A small, neatly wrapped package was waiting on my doorstep when I came home from work. I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was from one of my neighbors or a friend who knew I was celebrating. Inside was a handmade candle, a thoughtful and simple gift. I smiled, thinking how sweet it was for someone to acknowledge the holiday. The next day, another gift appeared. This time, it was a book of African proverbs. Still, it felt appropriate for the occasion, and I didn't think twice. But by the third day, when I found a framed photo of me and my sister at my college graduation, one that I hadn't shared with many people, I started to feel unsettled. Who would have this picture? Who would know to give it to me? I casually asked my friends and neighbors, but everyone claimed they hadn't sent it. They laughed it off, telling me I had a secret admirer. I tried to laugh along, but the pit in my stomach grew. By the fourth day, the gifts became more personal. A pair of earrings I had lost months ago, a favorite childhood toy. Whoever was leaving these things knew me too well, and I didn't know them at all. That's when I noticed him. A man lingering across the street from my apartment. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby. But then I started seeing him more often, standing outside the grocery store as I shopped, sitting in his car when I left work, always watching, never approaching. My nerves were shot. Each day I would dread coming home, knowing another gift would be waiting, something even more invasive than the last. By the sixth day, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I searched my apartment, looking for any signs that someone had broken in, but everything seemed normal. It wasn't until I found the hidden camera tucked behind one of my bookshelves that my world completely shattered. Someone had been watching me, inside my own home. My blood ran cold as I stared at the tiny device, realizing this person knew everything about me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't breathe. How long had it been there? Who put it there? I wanted to scream, to run, but I needed to stay calm. I grabbed my phone and called the police. As I waited for them to arrive, I checked my front door, making sure it was locked. That's when I heard a soft knock. Another gift had arrived. This time, the note was simple. I'm closer than you think. My hands trembled as I stared at the note, the words searing into my mind. I'm closer than you think. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to keep calm. I wasn't going to let this person terrify me any more than they already had. The police arrived a few minutes later, and I told them everything about the gifts, the man I'd seen, and the hidden camera. They took the camera for evidence and promised they would investigate. Still, I could see it in their eyes. They had no idea who this stalker was or how to catch him. The officer advised me to stay somewhere else for the night, but I refused. This was my home, and I wasn't going to let someone scare me into leaving it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, watching the door and waiting for something to happen. The note was tucked into my pocket, a chilling reminder of how close this person claimed to be. Every little noise made my heart race, but by morning, nothing had happened. On the seventh day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I reviewed everything I knew, piecing together any clues I could. The gifts, the photos, the earrings, these were things only someone close to me could have known about. But no one I knew would ever do something like this. At least, I didn't think so. I went through my phone, searching for anyone who might be acting differently. Then, I remembered my coworker, Marcus. He had always been a little too interested in my personal life, asking questions that seemed harmless at the time but now felt invasive. He'd once mentioned how he used to live near my apartment and knew the area well. Could it really be him? I drove to his place, my stomach churning with nerves. I knew I was taking a risk, but I needed answers. When I arrived, I knocked on the door. Marcus opened it, surprised to see me. Jasmine, what's going on? I didn't waste any time. I need to know if it's you, I said, my voice shaking. The gifts, the camera, is it you? His expression shifted from confusion to concern. Jasmine, I don't know what you're talking about. What camera? I pushed past him and into his apartment, searching for anything that could link him to the gifts. But nothing stood out. No photos, no packages, no signs that he had been stalking me. Marcus followed me, trying to calm me down. Look, if someone's harassing you, we need to call the police again. But I swear, it's not me. I felt a wave of embarrassment and relief. Maybe I had jumped to conclusions. I apologized and left, feeling more lost than ever. Later that evening, as I returned home, I found the final gift. It wasn't on my doorstep this time. It was inside my apartment, sitting on my kitchen table. My blood froze. The door had been locked when I left, and I hadn't given anyone access. I ripped open the package, my hands shaking, and inside was a small, familiar key. It was my spare apartment key, the one I had given to my ex-boyfriend Daniel nearly a year ago. I had broken up with him months ago and thought I'd gotten all my things back. But apparently, he had kept this one item. He had been the one watching me all along. I called the police again, telling them everything. This time, they found the evidence they needed, fingerprints on the camera and on the gifts. Daniel was arrested that night, and the stalking finally stopped. As the days passed, I began to feel safer. But I couldn't shake the lingering feeling of violation. Knowing that someone who was once so close to me had turned my life into a nightmare was terrifying. The gifts had stopped, and the camera was gone, but the fear remained. I had thought I was free. But as I cleaned up my apartment one day, I found something new, another small camera hidden behind my bathroom mirror. The case wasn't over yet. It started during our Kwanzaa celebration. Malik was always the life of the party, cracking jokes and keeping the energy high. But this year something was off. He was quiet, his eyes darting around the room like he was expecting someone, or something. On the second night, I caught him looking over his shoulder during dinner. I asked if he was okay, and he pulled me aside. "Noah, someone's been following me," he whispered, eyes wide with fear. I chuckled, thinking it was just another one of his pranks, but his face remained serious. "Come on, man. Who would be following you?" I asked, half smiling, trying to break the tension. "I don't know, but I've been seeing the same car, the same faces wherever I go. They know everything about me, and it's getting worse." I didn't believe him. No one did. My aunt said it was probably stress from work, and my uncle brushed it off as paranoia, but Malik couldn't shake it. On the third night, he barely ate and left early. On the fourth night, he didn't even show up. By the fifth night, everyone figured he just needed space. My aunt was making excuses, saying he'd always been a bit unpredictable. But when I saw his phone sitting on the kitchen counter, unlocked, with a half-typed message on the screen, something in my gut told me something was very wrong. Malik never left his phone behind. I picked it up, the screen glowing in my hand. The message was to me. It read, "Noah, I don't have much time. They know where I..." My heart pounded in my chest. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. That's when the first message came through. From Malik's number. "Help me." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I quickly replied, "Where are you?" No response. Later that night, I started getting more messages. "They're close. They know everything about us. Don't tell anyone." I tried to track him down, calling friends, even checking his apartment, but he was nowhere. It was like he vanished. Then on the seventh night, another text came through. "Meet me where it all began." I stared at the message, my mind racing. I knew exactly what that meant. Malik and I used to sneak out as kids to an old warehouse a few blocks from our neighborhood. It was our secret hangout, a place where we felt invincible. I didn't tell anyone as I headed to the warehouse. The streets were quiet, a cold wind biting at my face. When I arrived, the place looked as abandoned as ever, but something felt off. The air was heavy with silence. As I approached the entrance, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Malik's number. "It's too late." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. My hand hovered over the door handle. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the handle. My breath fogged up in the cold night air, and a feeling of dread settled in my stomach. What had Malik gotten himself into? What did he mean by, "It's too late"? I forced myself to push the door open, the hinges creaking as it slowly gave way. Inside, the warehouse was pitch black, except for the faint glow of light seeping through the cracks in the boarded-up windows. My heart raced as I stepped inside, the cold cement floor cold beneath my feet. I texted Malik one last time, "Where are you?" But there was no reply. The building was eerily quiet, and my footsteps echoed as I ventured deeper. I kept checking my phone, expecting another message, but it never came. I was alone, and I was starting to wonder if this had all been a trap. The warehouse was filled with old, rusted machinery and boxes of forgotten belongings, but nothing that suggested Malik had been there. I called his name, my voice shaking. Malik? No response. Then something caught my eye, a flicker of movement behind one of the large, dusty crates. I moved toward it, my pulse quickening. As I rounded the corner, I stopped dead in my tracks. There, sitting against the wall, was Malik. But he wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize was standing next to him, holding a phone in his hand. Malik looked disheveled, his eyes wide with fear. The man didn't acknowledge me at first, but as I stepped forward, he turned slowly, his face blank. Malik, I said, my voice shaking. What's going on? Malik's eyes flickered to the man, then back to me. Noah, I didn't want to get you involved. He looked terrified, his voice barely a whisper. This guy, he's been following me, but he's not just some random person. He works for a company I used to work for. They're involved in some shady stuff, Noah. I was trying to get away from it, but they found me. The man spoke then, his voice cold. You've been snooping around too much, Malik. You're a liability now. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't some random stalker. It was far more sinister. The man looked at me, his expression hard. I suggest you leave. It's better for both of you if you do. I took a step back, trying to process everything that was happening. What do you mean? What do you want from him? Malik's face grew even more anxious. They were using me for something. I found out too much, and now they want to make sure I never talk. I thought I could outrun them, but... His voice trailed off, and he looked helpless. Before I could say anything more, the man raised his hand. This conversation is over. I didn't have a choice. I backed out of the warehouse, my eyes still locked on Malik, who was looking down at the ground, defeated. I pulled out my phone, texted Malik one last time. Are you safe? His reply came back instantly. For now, but I need to disappear. I ran back to my car, the adrenaline still coursing through me. As I drove off, I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't just uncovered a simple case of paranoia. Malik had been right all along. He was running from something much darker than I could have ever imagined. I just hoped he'd find a way out before it was too late. I still haven't heard from him since that night, and every time my phone buzzes, I wonder if it'll be another message from Malik, or if it's someone else.